We're talking kick serve today. I have left the kick serve as one of my last serve videos to do, and here's the reason why. I am mainly coaching 3-0, 3-5, 4-0 players, some 4-5s, but it really quickly fizzles out after that. And usually at those levels, we need to master the flat and the slice serve first, because I'm a big believer that you should master certain skills first that are simpler, and then you move on to the more complex when you can repeat those things consistently and with accuracy. But since so many of you asked me to make a kick serve video, that's what we're gonna do today. When I played, I actually distinguished between two kinds of kick serves: the topspin serve and the kick serve. Now, the topspin serve has forward rotation on the ball. Topspin, just like you hit a topspin on your ground strokes. Forward rotation has a higher bounce, but a straight bounce. Now, the kick serve is, to my mind, one notch up from that, because it has a high bounce, and if we look at it from a right-hander's perspective, after the bounce, it veers off over to the right. Now, why do we need a kick serve or a topspin serve? But for the sake of this video, I'm actually going to talk about the kick serve only. So, the kick serve kicks. It has a high bounce. So number one, it helps me stay out of the net. That's why a lot of players choose it as a second serve, because they want to stay out of the net. Don't miss in the net. The second thing, and that is what the higher net clearance does, it gives the ball a higher bounce. So you bring the return up to the shoulders of your opponents. So that's the benefit of a kick serve or topspin serve. So those are the benefits. To my mind though, really, once you've mastered a kick serve, I would throw it in as a first serve as well. Because of the higher bounce, if you have that movement after the bounce, you're moving the ball away from your opponent. Unless it's a lefty, then it might sit right in their strike zone, so figure out if you're playing a righty or a lefty. But it is also a little bit slower, and it asks for a totally different approach in the footwork for the returner, and it throws a lot of people off. So don't discard it as just a second serve. What's the first thing that we have to talk about? You know it, the grip. You cannot hit a kick serve if you have a frying pan grip. And I was told that that is a German word. So I guess in English you call it a pancake grip. I'm still going with frying pan grip. Anyways, you cannot serve a kick serve with the wrong grip. You have to have the continental. The toss. The toss is very, very different from a flat serve and a slice serve. Whereas you can hit a slice and a flat serve, to my mind, off almost an identical toss, your kick serve has to be different. So how does it have to be different? Mind you, I'm making my videos for 3-0 to 4-0, 4-5. So most of us, and this totally includes me, lack the time to train and have as many repetitions as world-class players. We don't have the strength, we may not have the mobility, we may not have the flexibility. So that's why I'm not a big fan of also tossing the ball on my kick serve in front. So let's go over really briefly what a toss should look like for your slice or your flat serve to see the difference then. So ideally on a flat or a slice, I'm going to toss the ball a foot and a half inside the court. And again, because you have your arm extended, or ideally extended over the court as you toss, the ball will be inside the court. On my kick serve, I don't want it that far in front. And I'm talking about me as a representative of the players that I'm coaching. I do not have the leg strength anymore to really catapult me into the court, in addition to really managing a toss that will be a little bit further to the left. So for me, a kick toss should not be inside the court at a significant rate. I want that ball fairly close to me in terms of how far out I'm tossing it. That is okay. That is too far behind me. That is doable. So about a foot. I would not go any further. I know that there's a lot of difference between what we do and what pro players do, but that is one that I would leave to the pros because they have the training and the strength to really get that lift off their load there. The second difference is my toss location. What I want is, if you imagine yourself being basically the middle of a clock, I want that toss at 12 o'clock, maybe at 11:30, but that's it. I do not want anything like this. To my mind, that's way too far over to your left, because what you have to do to reach that ball is you end up leaning like this, and that is not what you want to do, because that just promotes injury. You are loading just as much out of your legs and legs only. There's no whole lot of motion here in your upper body. The other thing is, if we can't stabilize that, what happens is we're falling over to our left, and then we end up with a mixture of flat, slice, whatever, but it's not a kick. So make sure that your toss is at about a 12, 11:30. And here's our first drill. This is one drill that I used when I was on tour. The toss should come down on or just barely behind your shoulder if you're not doing a dance. All right, so if you are staying stationary, which you are when you're tossing, the toss should come down about there. That was actually a really decent toss for a kick. So do that a couple of times and get the feel for how you can toss. You'll notice also that the motion with which I'm tossing is slightly different. Now, I'm trying to obviously minimize that to not give it as a tell to my opponent, but I will most likely have a little bit of a rounder motion here so that you can actually toss the ball further over to your left. Whereas on my slice serve, I probably have a more straighter toss up. Nope, not good. Yep, decent. That's a really good toss. That's what I want, right on top of my shoulder. Other significant differences for a kick serve compared to a flat or a slice serve are that you're not going to lead quite as much with the edge of the racket. Whereas on the upswing of your flat and your slice serve, you're coming up very, very straight, as if you wanted to hammer a nail into the ceiling. And only on the later part of your upswing will you turn your thumb up and out, will you pronate to meet the ball flat on. Between a slice and a flat serve, the angle change with which you're making contact is 4 to 6 degrees. You really can't see that with the human eye. You will see that if you have enough frames in the recording. Absolutely, then you see it. But the upswing to a slice and the upswing to a completely flat serve look very much the same. Now on the kick, your racket drop will be the same as well, or cocking position. I'm using Dr. Mark Kovac's terminology. The stage in which you have the inside of your elbow, the inside of your wrist, the tip of your butt cap pointing up, and the tip of the racket pointing down. However, everything will be further over to your left a little bit. Whereas a slice, on a flat or a slice serve, you will most likely have that racket drop a little bit more to the right side. But because, we're going to get into that in a second, you want to really, really, really stay sideways on your kick, it will be a little bit more over to your left. And as you're swinging up, your racket tip will actually look a little bit further to the left. And we're talking minimal differences. But again, if you break it down really slow, those are the differences. So instead of coming up here very straight, you will roll over the ball this way here. You're not going to come at the ball completely flat. At the moment of contact, your racket is flat to the ball. But because just before and right after contact point, you have a different swing path than your slice or your flat serve, that is what imparts that forward rotation, and that gets a higher net clearance. Now here's one little thing that I want to address, and I've had questions about that. You hear the cue hitting up to the ball or brushing up to the ball. To me, that makes sense, because what I mean is that at some point in your motion, at your cocking position, the racket tip is below your hand and below, of course, the ball. So now I'm hitting up to it. What I don't mean is hit the ball up in the context of a kick serve, because that is what we talk about. We hit the ball higher over the net, but that doesn't mean that we're doing this. That is hitting up, and I can do that at very, very low pace. But if I'm introducing a full load, a full swing, I'm gonna send that thing right over the fence. So I'm brushing up to the ball with my racket. There's a little bit of a different swing path going up to the ball than it would be for a slice and a flat, because I am brushing up with the racket tip pointing over to your left hand side for a right-hander. So as you're making contact, your racket looks a little bit more like this as opposed to this here. So that is the up motion that we mean. Not hitting up, meaning getting under the ball and doing that. Two different things. Now, how to learn a different swing path. So if you see that, you're coming up to the ball and you're brushing up here. What I'm not doing is I'm not brushing left to right on the plane of the baseline. That is a side serve. I'm not sure what that is. But the kick is moving around, moving up and over the ball as if you had a big beach ball just above your head. Imagine a big beach ball. You can, of course, hit it flat on, but you're rolling over the top here. And because you have this rolling up motion, that is also one of the reasons why you don't want the toss too far in front, because a lot of times then if we have that kick and we don't have the leg strength to really catapult ourselves up into the court, we lean over the ball, and again, we're doing something that is not a kick serve. So you have that toss a little bit behind you and you brush over this beach ball. And you see that it's a rounder motion, and I'm actually having some tendency to the right. And that is why a lot of people think we also finish to the right. So if I'm doing what I'm saying, rolling over the ball, rolling up and forward, my arm will move to the right. What I want to prevent though is that you're doing this, because I've seen that. I'm making my videos based on things that I see, trust me. And you do see really good servers, like for instance, Pete Sampras or Boris Becker back in the day. It looks as if they're doing this. If they were to continue their follow through, they would still come over to the left. Maybe not quite as low, maybe not quite by their hips, but they're still coming around here. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to do this. That's also not a kick serve. That does not allow you that rolling motion. Some other crucial key points. It is even more essential on the kick serve that I stay sideways. On a slice and a flat serve, I also want to try to stay sideways. I want to try to stay sideways in my loading position, trophy position, so that if you were on the other side, you just see my left hand profile for a right-hander. Of course, for a left-hander, it's the other way around. And ideally, as much as possible, even in the cocking position and shortly before contact, you still want to see me somewhat side on. Because again, of lacking flexibility, mobility, strength, reach, whatever it is, a lot of people turn open too soon. And that will absolutely kill your kick serve. So on the kick serve, even more important that you stay side on as long as possible. When you start your kick serve journey, because I want to call it that because it is a long process, experiment a little bit with the positioning of your back foot. Obviously, the further you bring it back, the easier it will be to stay sideways, a little longer facing to the side fence. You definitely don't want to bring it around here. Now, because I'm one of those people that has very limited flexibility and very limited mobility, that is all I can serve these days. So don't add undue power if you don't need it in the beginning. Word of caution, the kick serve to my mind is really not about power. It's about that kick that if we talk about a right-hander, if I were to return here on the outside, you want that ball up by my shoulder. That is what you want with the kick serve. And or kick me out that I'm no longer in the frame. So if you have limitations, don't force it. Go slow like you should on everything that you're learning. So that is all I have these days. All right, let's talk progressions again. Start right here at the service line, choke up on the racket, and yes, you can work your way from more isolated to full motion. But the two things that you want to work on right now is to get that toss a little bit more to the left, and then let that racket drop accordingly and work on this motion that I'm rolling from down and back by my left butt cheek over the ball towards the top of the lamp post over there. So that's all I want to focus on right now. Staying relaxed, the precision of a good toss. Oh, look at that, twice in a row. And working on that rolling motion. Because then even if you play with completely dead balls, like I apparently have, you see that little kick off to the right after the bounce. Oh, that is terrible. See, that is a toss that was not good. It was too far to your left, so especially when you practice, let it come down. Then you go back to the baseline, and yeah, I would say start from the outside, because it is a little easier, to be honest, to see that kick. It is easier to stay sideways on the outside. On the deuce court, you do rotate open naturally a little bit more, so just start from the outside when you work on your kick. And yeah, you should actually really use better balls.